All right, welcome back, Better Everyday podcast listeners. I'm your host, Brad Weems. I'm live here from Market Street Media in downtown Johnson City, Tennessee. Today's guest is the creator of the wildly hilarious Instagram page, Make Wods Great Again. Today's guest is John Wooley. John, how's it going?
I'm good, man. How about you?
Good, good. I really appreciate your time today and just talking about the creation of your child that is Make Wods Great Again. There's so many people at the gym that are always reposting your stuff or making uh, jokes about whatever you're putting out there. So I thought it'd be really cool today to get you on and just tell people how you got here. I mean, you're at 365,000 followers. So what was the I want to go in depth later the origin story of that and everything. But for those that don't know you personally, let's talk about you, where you live, family, what you do for work, and whatever else you want to include.
Well, first of all, you're selling me short. It's 400,000 followers.
Oh no, my
Yeah,
bad.
there's also a Facebook page that has like 50,000.
Okay, got you.
But all of my humble bragging aside, I live in Ohio. I've been here in Cleveland for oh my god since '95. It's hard to believe it's been that long. Like right after the Indians went to their first World Series, and yeah, I just moved here for work and from the south. I'm from the South originally. Grew up in Mississippi.
Okay,
Was living in Tennessee, actually in Nashville, and working for a company, and they moved me here. And I've been here ever since, and I love it. It's perfect for a pasty white guy with the bald head. You don't get a lot of sunshine, and don't get too hot in the summer, so it's nice.
got you. Family.
Yeah, well, locally, I have two daughters,
Okay,
20 and 18, so college students. And I've got a mom and a dad. My dad's a CrossFitter, if you can believe that, at 77. And
wow.
got a couple of sisters, one older, one younger, and they're kind of all over the country. One in North Carolina, and my younger sister lives in Mississippi, close to my parents.
Okay. So was your dad doing CrossFit before you, or did you get him into it, or?
No, I got him into it. It's he's so stubborn. It's ridiculous. I'd been doing CrossFit, I guess, at that point for about 8 years, and they had a little health scare, him and my mom, and he decided he wanted to get in shape and get healthy. And he was a baseball player in college, and in his mind, he's still fit like he was in college.
Hmm.
When he was 75, and so he went down to the local CrossFit gym that I dropped in on multiple times. I knew the owners, and just went in and joined up. And like a savage, started going 5 days a week. And he's been doing that for 2 years now. And he just keeps going. He loves it. He's like the mayor of CrossFit in Tupelo, Mississippi. He's just like the only old guy in the gym, and he goes in there and he'll just row and do burpees and squats, and he's got goals like everybody else. I think last time I talked to him, he was like, I'm going to learn to do a rope climb. I'm like, you are absolutely not going to learn to do a rope climb. You're 77 years old and there's no reward for falling off a rope. Like, no,
Right.
do scale your workouts. But in his mind, he's still this 18-year-old baseball player. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, my
he's
dad. My
good.
dad's 67, and he's still taking classes, but 77. That's impressive.
Yeah, he loves it. He loves it.
So, Dad, if you're listening, you've got another 10 years to go until you
There you go.
catch up. So, let's talk about how you got into CrossFit and how long you've been doing it, and so on.
Well, I just hit my decade mark. I got drugged to it by a friend. I was coaching, and I use that term loosely, coaching my daughter's soccer team, and they were like 5-year-old soccer, so it's not even like real soccer. They just run around and pick daisies and kick the ball at each other. And he comes in one day, and he had heard I'd been doing P90X, and he's like, "Hey, I hear you're doing this. I've got this new thing called CrossFit. We're opening a gym. We'd like, why don't you come try it out?" And I'm like, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "Well, it's just like P90X, but on steroids," which in hindsight is a really ironic way to put it. But anyway, so I thought I was the pinnacle of fitness. I'd done P90X for 90 days. I am as fit as you could possibly be, right? I could just do a ton of push-ups. So I'm like, sure, I'll come show you guys how fit I am. So I go rolling in there on a Saturday morning, smartly only had a cup of coffee beforehand and no food. So I'm on a fasted stomach, which was brilliant. And they introduced me to this workout. As a matter of fact, I just redid the workout a couple of days ago, and it was 3 rounds for time, 10 thrusters at 95 pounds, 20 burpees, 100-foot overhead walking lunge with a 45-pound plate. That's the intro workout. This is your welcome to CrossFit. This is what it's going to be like for the rest of your life intro, right?
I can't believe you're still doing it.
Yeah, well, I'm stubborn. So I'm talking to the coach. I'm like, I didn't know what a burpee was. I'm like, what's a burpee? She's like, it's like a push-up. Well, in my mind, I'm great at push-ups. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to show this woman how fit I am. And they scale the bar down to 65 pounds for thrusters. And I want to say it started with a 25-pound plate on the overhead walking lunge, but quickly did not stay at that weight. And anyway, long story short, I get in the first round of burpees and I go as hard as I can for 20. And then all of a sudden I'm like, why is my heart beating out of my chest?
Mm-hmm.
And next thing I know, I'm standing at the door trying to catch my breath. And the coach is yelling from across the gym, don't go home, don't leave, And anyway, it took me 33 minutes to finish that workout. 33
Oh, wow.
minutes. Now that was 10 years ago. I redid it a few days ago in less than 13. I want to say it was like 12:45 or something like that.
That's great.
And so it's the power of the sport. But, long story short, it nearly killed me. And they thought I would never set foot again, much like you said. But I'm one of those people, like my whole life, I refuse to let anything beat me, And so I'm like, all right, I'll be back Monday. And truthfully, I've been going back ever since because I can't figure out a way to beat it. It always, CrossFit always wins, always, so
Yeah. And the more fit you get, the more it hurts.
yeah. Oh yeah. This is true.
So, all right, let's talk about your baby here. Make Wods great again. All right, let's go back to the beginning and how this all started.
Oh, I've told the story so many times, dude. I keep telling people I'm just gonna start making up new ways of telling it just for my own humor. But it started as a lark. I started as a page called CrossFit Trump. It was right after Trump won the election. And I thought it would be funny to take Trump's tweets and turn them into like CrossFit things, but do them in his voice, like in the way he tweeted things.
Let's hear your Trump impression.
Well, it's not an impression. It was not, I don't mean like physically his voice. I mean
Okay.
like his,
Okay.
the way he would type things out, he'd say
Yeah.
things like, it's going to be huge, and so I would take whatever his post was and I would make it about CrossFit. And it was on Twitter. It wasn't even on Instagram. And it was kind of moderately funny. And, picked up a few followers here and there. And I was truthfully only doing it because I thought, like it was such a unreal thing that Trump had won the election at the time that I thought, all right, well, maybe this will catch on. It'll be funny,
Mm-hmm.
And one of my daughters was looking at it and she's like, hey, this is really funny, but it'd be better if you had a meme page. Why don't you create a meme page? I'm like, all right. So I handed her my phone and she created it and we called it CrossFit Trump, and didn't really do much with it for a few months. I just kind of sat there and I do a few memes here and there, but it wasn't anything special. And then, fast forward, I don't know, 3 or 4 months later, regionals came around and they had an update show contest. So as they're streaming regionals, they'd have this contest where you could hashtag the update show and they might show your joke or your meme or your tweet on the air. Well, I've always had like a real attention to detail to things. So I knew that the host, Kayla Banfield, I was just talking to her about this the other day, actually. She's the reason this page has grown as much as it has, or at least that it started. I knew at the time she was dating James Newberry. So I did a couple of James Newberry memes, knowing she would see them,
Mm-hmm.
and sure as the world, she posted them. And I didn't realize they were going to post them. Like I'm sitting there watching regionals and I'm just goofing off, and me and my daughter on the phone or on the couch together and it's on the TV. And then and here's a tweet by CrossFit Trump and both of our eyes like go like saucers and there it is on the TV, And so I grabbed my phone and I started watching the follower count go. At the time I had like 300 and it went from like 300 to 1,000, like just instantly,
Wow.
And I'm like, all right, well, that's interesting. It's kind of the power of social media. And then a few days later, I get a message from a friend of mine. He goes, hey, you got one of your posts got reposted on Team Richie on YouTube. I'm like, what the hell is a Team Richie? And they're like, oh, he's a CrossFit YouTuber and he's got a couple 100,000 followers and apparently he really likes you. And same thing happened. I picked up a couple thousand followers from that,
Mm-hmm.
And then I was like, all right, if I can, it occurred to me, very quickly, if you can connect with people and get them to reshare your stuff and, and make it relatable, people will follow. And at that point, it was off to the races. Like, I started creating content. I went from 300 followers to 10,000 in like 30 to 45 days, probably.
Hmm.
And then from 10,000 to 100,000 in a year. And then 8 months later, it was 200,000. And it's just never really slowed down at that point. Just been kind of a crazy ride.
Yeah. So when you had 300 followers and that post gets featured at regionals,
Mhm.
did you get on the computer and when you saw the uptick, did you get on the computer and just start creating like instantly?
No, like, well, I always have had this creative streak and can kind of create things at will. Like it's almost like this endless well of creativity. Doesn't mean it's all good. It just means there's just a lot of it.
Hmm.
And so my philosophy early on is like, so what I wanted to create was posts about my life. My theory, and I contend that I'm 100% right on this, even to this day, is that if it's happened to me in the gym, it's happened to you in the gym. Like, there's
Hmm.
nothing that because I go 5 days a week. I'm not a lucky dude. I just show up and do the work.
Right.
And I figure whatever dumb things happen to me are happening to other people. And so literally every tweet, every meme, every satire is something that has either happened to me personally or I've seen happen to somebody. And it's the relatability that I think has made the page grow. And I started to learn that early on. Like, I've always been deep in the comments and the messages that I get from people. And I would see them come into the comments and they tag a friend and say, "Oh, Becky, this is so you." And I would kind of catalog that in my mind of, all right, so that was relatable. So maybe I can play on that and just continue to do it. And
Hmm.
so that was a big part of why the page grew. It wasn't the entire reason, but certainly, kind of the big part of it. And you know, I kind of figured out the algorithm at the time too. That helped a little. So
Yeah. So a couple things there. A lot of times the hardest part of creating content's coming up with what you're going to say. So it's pretty cool that you naturally have this gift that you can just keep generating stuff. Secondly, you've got the sport of CrossFit and all your athletes over here, and then you've got the average everyday gym goer over here. It's cool to me that you're able to connect with all of the above.
yeah, well, that's intentional. My theory around the page has always been make posts for the average athletes, not for the games athletes. I've been fortunate. I've literally only been coached by games athletes my entire
Really.
CrossFit career. Every CrossFit coach I've had has been to the games at some point or another. It's ridiculous.
So
Like, I'm
who have you been coached by?
well, so the first gym I opened or I went to, the owner at the time was Travis Page, who ended up finishing second in the Masters division probably 3 or 4 years after I started there.
Hmm.
And during the time he was there, though, they were coaching Scott Panchek, which is how I got to know the Pancheks. So Scott started there about the same time I did and made his first trip to the games training at CrossFit Distinction. We also had Julie Fouché training there at the time. So you have to keep in mind, like, imagine this. Here I am, 40 years old, never worked out in my life, totally unfit. There would be routine days where I would walk in the door and the only people in the gym would be Scott Panchek, Julie Fouché, and Travis, and Julie's husband or fiance at the time, who was equally fit, and
Hmm.
then me. I thought this is the way it was. I just thought everyone was as fit as them, and I was the anomaly, not the other
Right.
way around. And so that was kind of my beginning stage. They had another at that gym. We had another coach that came in that finished second on a team at the games. And then I went out to Mentality and trained with Scott and his brothers. And so, they've all been. Fisa Gavi, who's a games athlete, was a coach there. And I know I'm missing one. There's at least one other one. So, I've just been really fortunate to always be around like kind of these really world-class athletes. And so I've never viewed them as athletes. I just view them as doing the same dumb stuff we do, just better at it. you
Hmm.
know?
Yeah.
And so that's kind of the point behind the jokes is like, they make as many mistakes as we do. I've seen them make plenty of mistakes. They're just super, super talented. And so, I don't know. I just kind of figure if I can make it relatable for everyone and, get a laugh out of it and bring some joy to people's day, it's worthwhile. So that's it.
Do you think if you weren't working around such elite athletes or being coached by them that you would be at the 10-year mark in your CrossFit journey?
Oh, I'd still be doing it for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. I mean, look, great coaching is super important. I mean, I would never want to, talk bad about the affiliates. That's where the heart of CrossFit is what's going on in the gyms. And there are great coaches everywhere that will never set foot on a competition floor,
Right.
that will never be a great athlete themselves. They're just great coaches. And I've been in plenty of those gyms. I've just been really lucky to be around a lot of athletes. And for the record, there's a lot of great athletes that are not good coaches. I just happen to
Hmm.
fall into a group that also happen to be great coaches. Like Scott's an unreal great coach. Um, but yeah, I would absolutely still be doing it. I mean, it's about health and wellness for me, not trying to compete.
Hmm. So you're sitting here sharing posts that are about the average everyday gym goer. So when did you decide to start creating content that would almost troll some of the elite athletes?
Well, I early on I set some rules for myself. I'm trying to remember what they all were, but they're very specific. And some, you would think they're common sense, but they're not. So, no racist humor, no religious humor, no sexist humor. Don't sexualize the athletes, male or female. And that sounds like, oh, that's a common sense rule. Not really. There's a lot of funny stuff out there and a lot of pictures that would be very easy to sexualize someone that would be hysterically funny but humiliating to the person you've captured the photo of.
Correct.
And so I set some of those rules for myself. And around trolling the athletes, I always said I will only be borderline mean to people who have a gold medal around their neck. If they've been on the podium, they've earned the right to get kind of harsher humor because they're the most elite of the elite, and
Hmm.
they're going to have to learn to take some of that with a grain of salt. By the
It's
same
the
time, well, just by the same time, I try to be kind though. Like I almost always in a post, if I think it might be taken wrong, I make sure in the commentary to mention how much I respect and like the person I'm posting about because these are just and people forget, man. These CrossFitters, I know they're pro athletes. These aren't like NBA and Major League Baseball and NFL. Like these
yeah.
guys are not making a ton of money. There's not
Mhm.
like the very 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 top ones are, but the anyone outside the top 10 is not at all.
Right, right.
No.
They have to, come up with their own coffee or
Yeah.
um,
So
whatever. So
yeah,
because they're only going to be competing at that high of a level for a couple years.
there is a balance between trolling someone because I don't feel like I do trolling. I think satire is different than trolling. I think you have to be, you know, cautious about how things are worded and clever. It's just it's a balancing act, and I've made plenty of mistakes. Plenty. You just learn from them and don't make them again. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so give me an example of a time that you pull up your direct messages and you have like an elite athlete that reaches out, or one of those moments where maybe you can say, all right, I've made it," kind of.
Well, I say this is going to sound like I'm bragging, but there isn't a day go by I don't get a message from an elite athlete of some
Hmm.
sort. Probably the one that stood out at me the most was early in the journey. I did a post on Rich Froning, and it was called the Rich Froning Starter Pack, and it was 4 pictures, and it was a picture of wrist wraps, lifting shoes, Nair, and Rogaine. That was it. And and he messaged and said, "Hey, I don't wear wrist wraps." And I thought that was so classy and so funny. And I was like, "Oh my god, the champ just reached out to me."
Hmm.
It was hysterical. And then like during that time, keep in mind when all the like CrossFit drama started happening, and I don't mean the drama where Greg left. I mean the drama that Greg created, like when he fired the media team is a great example. And they started making changes to the games. Rich would DM me, like straight up DM me and give me like, he'd hear something going on and he'd DM it to me, like I was getting inside information from some of the top athletes,
As if you work at HQ or something.
Yeah, well, they knew I had a big enough following that people would want to hear it. And, these athletes aren't going to put their name on it,
Uh,
and, and so at that time, that's when I started to realize like how much of a reach the page had and that it was bigger than jokes. It was really a connection to the community. And, and so I was really at that point was like, all right, if I've got this connection to people, I'm going to take advantage of that and do what I feel strongly about and how I was raised. I'm going to invest time in charitable giving and giving back to the community and, being a part of events and that sort of thing. And so it really, kind of shaped the direction of the page. I mean, I continued obviously to do memes and jokes and satire and that sort of thing. But, then I started doing posts for, CrossFit centric charities, whether it was veterans group or LGBT or, breast cancer or whatever, because there's just a whole bunch of CrossFit charities out there. I started helping them and, and started viewing the page more like it's a community page than just a place you go for memes.
right, right. So let's talk. It's one thing to get a direct
Mhm.
message from Froning or whoever, but let's talk about a moment where maybe you got invited to something where there's a big collaboration of athletes, unexpectedly.
Well, this is a little different than that, but it was bigger than that. I got invited to Greg Glassman's house. That was pretty cool.
Wow.
Um, Actually, I got invited to HQ first. Jillian Michaels had done some stupid post. She's done a few, but she did this stupid post bashing CrossFit.
Hmm.
And I view CrossFit like part of my job is to protect the brand as much as it is to make fun of the brand. It's like I tell everyone it's like picking on my baby sister. I can pick on my baby sister, but you can't pick on my baby sister,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. Like, I'm not going to let an outsider come in and make fun of us, So I just roasted her. And I mean, I went at her hard. Like, as much as I have rules to be respectful to CrossFitters, I had none for her. and I let her have it. And I'm sitting on my couch and I get a DM from CrossFit Health, and it's got the little blue check next to it. So I'm like, oh shit, this is like the real deal. And it says, Coach Glassman would like to talk to you. Please call this number. And then within seconds, I got an email that said the same thing. And so I call the number, and Karin Thompson, who's the head of CrossFit Health at the time, answers. She's a good friend now, but she answers. She goes, "Oh yeah, Greg's right here." And like within seconds, I'm talking to him. I mean, you can't even make this up. On a Sunday afternoon, I'm just hanging out watching TV. 5 seconds later, I got Greg Glassman on the phone. And he starts telling me how grateful he is that I did all these posts about Jillian Michaels because they think she works for Pepsi and this is a hit job because they're in this big lawsuit over with Big Soda, all his conspiracy theories. And actually, well, that part actually wasn't even a conspiracy theory. The Jillians might have been, but regardless, he's going on and on and on. And he's like, "Hey, if there's anything I can ever do for you, just ask," and gives me his phone number. So I had been contemplating starting a podcast. So it was only, an idiot like me could do. A week later, I sent him a message. I go, "Hey, you want to be the first guest on my podcast?" And he's like, "Sure. Can you be here Wednesday?" I'm like, "Okay." So I had to go tell my boss. Like, I hadn't told anyone at work I was doing this,
Hmm.
tell him on Monday that I'm flying out of town 2 days later. And 2 days later, I'm on a plane to Santa Cruz, just like that. And had breakfast with Greg and yeah, went down, sat on that ugly ass couch and did our first interview. It was an interesting time to say the least.
Did you watch the interview with Craig Ritchie that Glassman did?
Yeah.
It,
We recorded ours roughly around the same time.
so that conversation felt really awkward to me. What was your all's conversation like?
So I have a lot of opinions on Greg, but I would tell you he's been great to me personally. I mean, that was a great experience. He was very kind. We didn't see anything weird or, uncouth while we were there. In light of like kind of all the stuff that came out afterwards. But I would say he has a kind of a zen-like quality about him that when you're in there are very few people that have it, but I don't know if you've ever been around a celebrity or someone who's like kind of larger than life. Like when you're in a room with him, like everything gravitates to him. It's really an odd experience. And he's very smart, but as people in power and very smart people like him can do, you ask him one question and your answer is 45 minutes long. And that's what it was like.
Yeah.
I literally asked him a question and I could have just said to him, "Hey, how's the weather?" And the answer he gave me is what he was going to give me anyway. And it went on for 45 minutes. And we ended up recording like an hour and a half worth of material. We released all of it, like unedited. It's all out there. He just went on and on and on. And, he's a brilliant guy. He's got, he certainly understands health and fitness and what it takes to be fit. And there's a lot of weird stuff in there too. So it is a little awkward because he has the answers he wants to give, regardless of what the question is, and which is what he did to Craig.
Yes. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, cool. So, what was one of the big first events you went to because of all the success of the page? I mean, I'm sure you got invited to the games.
Actually, I pay for all those events. This
Do
is
you?
the kind of the funny part about all this. People think, I will often get accused, and that's the right term to use, of either pulling my punches on jokes for fear of not getting free games tickets or being in cahoots with somebody else or whatever. I pay for everything. And I do that intentionally because I don't want to be owned by anyone. You know what I
That's
mean?
awesome.
It's like
Yeah.
I have a real job. Like I'm gonna say this very humbly because I'm very fortunate. I make more money than the games athletes do. Like
Hmm.
I don't need to do this. Right.
Right.
Like, and so I say that only to say that, I don't ever worry about what I can and can't get into because I just buy tickets like everybody else. I don't want to get a discount for them. Now I do get press passes that'll get me backstage and that sort
Hmm.
of thing if I need them, but I rarely even use those. It's just, I don't know. I just like to go watch and hang out and talk to average CrossFitters. But the first one I got invited to that was kind of cool was the Mac. It was the first time I got a press pass. And Wilson Pack runs that. I don't know if Wilson will hear this, but he's an awesome dude. And he still runs the Mac to this day. And this was in DC. And I come walking in, I got my press pass on, and because I had it on, I couldn't come in through the normal gate. I had to come in through the back. So I come into the back through the athlete area. I step out on the floor, and you can't even make this up. It's just weird. I step out on the floor, and I had not been there less than 5 seconds. I hear some girl go, "Oh my God, there's John Wooley," and like locks me in a bear hug. And she's all sweaty because she was an athlete,
Yeah.
And I'm like, "Who are you?" And she's like, "I'm just a real fan of your page. Can I get a photo?" And I'm like, "You want a photo with me?" She's like, "Yes." And I'm like, "Okay." Well, over the course of that weekend, I bet I took 100, 200 photos of people.
Hmm.
And that was the first time that had ever happened where people had asked, if they could, get me to sign something or get a photo or whatever. And that's when I started to realize like, oh man, this is going to be weird. Like some weird shit's going to happen. And I was right. There's a lot of weird stuff that comes from it.
You don't put your face out there a lot though, so I'm kind of shocked that was the case.
Well, I had just started putting it out. The podcast had just come out, and so it was
Okay.
like, it was starting to come out more. And I put it in my story some, and now, I mean, the podcast. I mean, I got 2 podcasts, and between the 2 of them, there's a couple hundred episodes, and 3 years worth of data and interviews like this. So people know who I am kind of
Hmm.
now.
Yeah.
So it happens like in the weirdest times, weirdest play. Like it happened at a couple of like local events. Happened in front of my daughters. That was awesome. Like because they have no idea what this is like, and some random girls like, "Oh my God, can I get a photo with you?" My girls are like, "What is going on right now? Like, why is this woman wanting to take a photo with my dad?"
Yeah.
So yeah, it's interesting.
What are your top posts of all time? Because Instagram kind of hides the metrics now.
Well, that's a good question because the page has been public, private a few times. It's been public now for a couple of years, so I don't have full data on which ones have done the best. And the truth is like some posts do really well and they don't deserve to, meaning they get a lot of engagement during the games or the open.
Hmm.
Like I make a joke like you could post anything during the open and it'll get 20,000 likes. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, could literally just say, "Hey, the open's so cool, huh?" And everybody will like it. Like, just because everyone's watching.
Yeah.
Um, I have some that are my favorites. Like for me, it's all about which ones are my favorites, not which ones are well liked. And I've kind of gotten to the point now, I don't even look to see how many likes or, how many times things get shared. I used to look all the time and it would drive me crazy. And now I just create what I want to create for me. But my favorite post of all time is probably the Obama post. It's a Key and Peele speech. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's one where the guy's pretending to be Obama and he's going down the greeting line. And every time he gets to a white person, he shakes their hands, is very polite. And when he gets to a black person, he like high fives them, gives them a big hug, And so over all the white people, I would put something you dislike at CrossFit, like rowing, mobility, whatever. And over all the African American people, I put things you absolutely love, like new shoes, booty shorts, strength day, whatever, and it comes off really funny when you see it. And I love Key and Peele. Like it was one of my favorite shows. So for me, it was ideal because I get to kind of use some of my heroes and connect it to CrossFit.
Yeah. So most people creating as much content as you, they're looking to monetize.
Mhm.
I mean, professionally successful. So why do you do this? Like you
Oh, it's
posted set.
monetized. It's monetized for sure. So a part of it, there's a little part of it is money. I mean, I wouldn't lie about that. I mean, the podcast sponsor, for God's sakes. So that part's cool. But for me, it's bigger than money. Like I like to give back to the community. I love the charitable aspect of it. I mean, last year, I want to say I raised around 15,000 for charity.
Wow.
This year I'm doing the adaptive campaign, the campaign for the adaptive athletes that didn't get invited to Madison. And I've raised 11,000 for that, not to mention the swag bags that are coming from a dozen sponsors. So that'll probably end up raising over 15 grand when it's all said and done. And so those things are really cool. And then, there's moments where you get to help real groups like, Battle Cancer or Project Onyx. Like there's, just all these charities that need help that are doing great work and you get to support what they're doing. And so those things are just all really cool. But, setting all of that aside, probably the biggest reason is like anytime I go somewhere, I mean, it's inevitable. Someone will say to me, "Hey, your page brings me so much joy." And, it sounds sappy, but we live in a cruel world, man. Like, I don't know
Hmm.
what your life's like, but it's tough everywhere I go. And I
Yeah.
see it in people's eyes and their faces. And if you can make somebody's life a little better, that's an awesome moment, and
Yeah.
the fact that I get a chance to do that is great. So as long as I get to keep doing that, I'll keep doing it. When that ends, I'll probably quit,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you have other pages trying to do what you're doing
Oh,
on Instagram?
there's a dozen out
Yeah.
there that are doing it. And some are really funny. I don't follow any of them. And I don't mean that as an insult to them. I just don't really like meme pages. That's that's the real joke in all this. I don't even really like memes. I just find myself funny. No, I think that, a lot of them do things really well. Um, some of them are just mean and you can create a following doing that. But I've always believed like the reason why my page is done, I think my closest quote unquote competitor, and I don't view any of them as competition, and I know most of them, but the closest one to me is Fluffy Duck, and he's at like 125,000 or something. Although he has a really big TikTok following because he loves to do dances. Um, but the others are 80,000 or less. And I think the reason most of them kind of cap off there is that they don't seem to connect to the community. They do some of the relatable humor, and that's good, which is why they are able to pick up some of those followers. But what they don't do is they don't connect to the charitable aspect and the things going on in people's lives. And they're not willing to talk about the things that are, I don't, edgy is not the right term, but like I've never shied away from fighting battles,
Yeah.
and defending people, even if it meant losing followers,
Hmm.
and because my theory was, it's like, look, if I take a stand, like early on, I was doing posts for Outwad, which is now Out Athletics. And I knew the owner, and I know the owner, Will, or the founder, and they do great work and they create scholarships for, kids that or, in the LGBT community. And a lot of these kids come from broken homes, so they've been kicked out and they don't have any money. And like they're getting them into health and wellness, right? It isn't even really about sexuality as much as about taking someone who has a need and getting them healthy, right? And I think that's a cool thing. Getting people healthy, that's great. And so I would do posts for them. And man, people would raise hell. They, you know, you're being political. We don't want this political stuff. I'm like, it's not political to, find someone that got kicked out of their house and get them into health and wellness.
Yeah.
And so I would fight those battles routinely, and with the theory being, it's like, well, the person that's leaving me, I don't want them anyway.
Right.
Those aren't my people. I'm not trying
Mm-hmm.
to please everyone. I want people that are kind and caring and if you lose the one, what generally happens is that person goes to 5 of their friends and goes, look at this jerk. And 3 of their friends go, no, they're right. And then you pick up those 3,
Yeah.
like that's how social media works. So
They
I just,
say to make an impact with content, you need to attract or like engage 51% of your population, and then kind of like rub 49 the wrong way sometimes. So would
yeah.
you say with your edginess that you're kind of doing that?
Yeah, well, I said early on, I learned from, I don't know if you've ever listened to Joy and Claire's podcast. It was Girls Gone Wad forever, and they just brought that back. But I'd kind of connected to them and was, asking for advice on my own show. And one of them said to me, they're like, look, you got to piss off 10% of your audience at all times.
Hmm.
That's how you'll grow. And I was kind of already doing that. It just had never really occurred to me that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
And I've certainly had plenty of moments where I've blown up a big stink for people. Like, here's a good example. And this is a little embarrassing, but like, a week ago, I spoiled one of the open workouts, 22.3. Somebody sent it to me early and I posted it early as a spoiler.
Yeah,
You
and
know?
I started blasting it to people at the gym. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I got blown up in the comments. Like, if you go to those comment sections, look, there's 100 people in there telling me what an asshole I am.
Hmm.
What no one was seeing on the back end, I picked up 1,000 followers from
Yeah.
that one post. Now, doing it over, I would not make that post, and I could care less that I got 1,000 followers from it. I'm just using it as an example. Like, I don't think I should have posted it. In hindsight, I just kind of rushed to do it, and it was just a boneheaded move on my part. But it's a good example of, yeah, you can rub some people the wrong way, but it will also bring in people if you do that. And there's a lot of different ways to do it. I just try to find the right way to do it as often as I can, and sort itself out, because the world's bigger than just gathering followers. Like, followers don't mean anything, to be
Yeah.
honest.
I was doing a little bit of homework on you before our podcast, and I listened to an interview you did with the Morning Chalk Up. It's on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about Dave Castro unfollowing you. Let's talk about that.
Dave. I don't know Dave. I met him once. He seems like a nice guy. Everybody I know who knows him loves him. That's my
Hmm.
opinion of him. I mean, he has a great reputation. That's what I know of him. I mean, he has a reputation in other ways too. Everybody knows that stuff too. But
Yeah.
the whole thing was weird. It doesn't bother me that he blocked me. Still doesn't bother me. I don't know why he did. I wasn't doing posts on him. That was the weird thing. It wasn't like I did a Dave Castro post and he's like, oh, blocked.
But he would have been one of the easier targets for you to make a post on.
I had done plenty. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
I've done plenty of posts on Dave Castro, but I've also done plenty of posts, praising him for his great programming and how good he was at his now former job, and everything else. So I don't know. Like, I don't really have an opinion on it anymore, and he's gone. So it's even less of an issue for me at this point. I think he's got rabid fans that love him and are sad that he's gone, and certainly continuing to vocalize it. But I think over the years, it'll blend out into the history of CrossFit, of what a good job he did, and the sport will continue to grow and move on.
Gotcha. So let's talk about your 2022 so far. I
Mhm.
noticed that you've been losing some weight, getting healthier.
Yeah, trying to.
What have you been doing?
Oh, I've done so much stuff this year. Well, at the beginning of the year, I was just like, I had a great end of the year. As a Southerner, you'll get this. I went home for Christmas to my mom's house, and man, I had all the sweet tea, all of it. I mean, like whatever sweet tea could be made in the South, I had it, and all the cookies and all the cake and all the fried chicken and biscuits. And oh, I love Southern food so much. And I also got all the pounds on. Like I just was getting out of control. And so I'm like, I'm gonna get my life in order. I'm 51, like, and I'm in fitness, and I'm still working out during this period full time. It wasn't like I wasn't working out. I'm still fit. I just felt gross. So I'm like, I'm
Hmm.
going to dial in my nutrition. I'm going to dial in my health. So I did two things. I reached out to a friend at RP, Renaissance Periodization, who is a coach there. He's also a doctor. Ironically, I'd met him at that same CrossFit Health conference I got flown out to with Greg. And I'm like, hey, I want to do some one-on-one coaching. What will it cost? And like everything else, like I mentioned before, I paid for it. So no one thinks RP gave this to me for free. This is not a commercial plan. And then I reached out to another friend who I met through CrossFit Health and said, hey, I want to be a part of, can I get into the CrossFit Precision Care Health Pilot? And I got signed up for that and paid for that too, by the way. And so, yeah, so I started, going on this nutrition plan for RP. I just hit, next week will be my 90-day mark. I hit my goal weight this morning. So I went from my starting weight of 194 on January 3rd to 170.0 this morning. So
Wow.
24 pounds, almost 25 pounds. And, and then over that time, I've been meeting with precision care people. They did a DNA test and a blood test and, ran my blood work and have given me recommendations on what supplements I need and, kind of what my workout strategy should be and that sort of thing. So yeah, so just, getting healthier, just, trying to get my life together
Gotcha.
and it's working.
What are your goals with CrossFit?
To not die most days. It's mostly just health and wellness. Like, right now I'm not in an affiliate. My gym closed locally. And, so I'm training at home. I'm fortunate to have a really awesome home gym. And for a while I was writing my own programming. Right now I'm doing Hard Work Pays Off. I just had Frazier on the podcast a week or so ago, and they were rolling out this Hard Work Pays Off. I'm like, all right, well, I'm going to do it. I'll try it for a while, and it's killing me like everyone else. A lot of squats. But I work out 5 days a week. I'm I want to build strength and be functionally fit, but I'm not looking to compete. So, I never push myself to the point where I think I could get injured. I know that level's different for a lot of people and it could always happen, but for me, it's about, I want to be able to walk away from my workout and feel good.
Yeah.
I don't want to be rolling around on the floor. I don't want to be worried my knees are going to blow out, so I work really hard. Don't get me wrong. But I just want to be healthy and I want to live a long life. And when I'm 80, I want to be walking upright and not needing assistance and not in a home, so those are my, what I want to do through CrossFit.
Well, it sounds like genetically, you're going to be okay as long as you keep putting in the work. You got your dad out there kicking it at 77, so
I
I
hope
think
so. Fingers crossed.
there you go. Well, John, I know you got to get back to work here in a minute, so I don't want to take any more of your time, but I do want to say thank you for hopping on today. It was cool
Yeah.
hearing the story of your page, and I still find it super humorous that you don't even like memes. So,
I like some of them. I just don't follow any of the pages, but I look at them from time to time.
gotcha. Well, appreciate you hopping on today. Better every day, listeners. Thank you for tuning in, and we will be catching up with you soon.